Alright, in this video we're going to be looking at our second practice problem. So this problem is also dealing with strings just like our last problem. So let's just jump straight into reading the problem and the steps that follow this problem. So the first line of comment is the lowercase uppercase conversion. We won't be able to understand this before reading the steps. So here are the steps. So the first step is to prompt user to input text. And then after we prompt user to input text, we're basically counting the number of lowercase letters and uppercase letters in the string. And then we have a bunch of conditions. So if there are more lowercase letters and uppercase letters in the string, then we're converting the entire string to lowercase. Otherwise, if there are more uppercase letters than lowercase letters in the string, then we're converting the entire string to uppercase. Otherwise, the only remaining condition, so if the number of lowercase letters and uppercase letters are the same, then you leave the string as is. So let's do our first step, which is to prompt user to input text. So just like our last problem, we're creating a variable, and I'll make a descriptive variable this time. So prompt user input, and same thing as last time. So prompt user input equals input enter your text. So that's the first step. Now we have to count the number of lowercase letters and uppercase letters in the string. So for this, we'll actually be creating two variables. One variable is going to be keeping track of the count of lowercase letters, and the other variable is going to be keeping track of the number of uppercase letters in the string. So let's create those two variables. So count lower is equal to 0. Initially, that's the count. So count lower is basically the number of lowercase letters, and count upper is the number of uppercase letters in the string. And we're saying both of them equal to 0 because that's the initial count before actually starting to count the number of lowercase and uppercase letters. So our next step is to iterate through the string and check each character. So the way we iterate through a string, or each character in a string, I should say, is we have the for loop. So for I, in this case, you could say I. You could use any random variable, but in this case, I'm going to use I. So for I in strings, so for I in prompt user input, which essentially means you're iterating through each character in the string. And now we're going to have a few conditions. So now we're going to check if it is a lowercase or an uppercase. So in order to check that, we do I, so this character dot, which means to gain access to this method of isLower. So basically what isLower is doing is checking if that certain character is a lowercase. So I dot isLower. isLower means it's basically kind of like a boolean. It's checking if this is true. So if this character is a lowercase, then we're going to increment to this count lower variable 1. So count lower plus equals 1, which means you're going to keep adding 1 to this variable each time we find a character that is lowercase. And we do the same thing for uppercase. So if I is upper, which means if that character is, or a letter is an uppercase, then we're going to keep adding 1 to this count upper variable. So hopefully by this process, we should be able to count the number of lowercase letters and the number of uppercase letters in the string. So now we have the remaining condition. So more lowercase letters than uppercase letters in the string means convert the entire string to lowercase. So now we're going to have make use of if. So if lowercase or the count lower. So the number of lowercase letters is the number of lowercase letters and uppercase letters is represented by count lower and count upper respectively. So if count lower, so if the number of lowercase letters is more than the number of uppercase letters. So if count lower is greater than count upper, which means the number of lowercase letters is greater than the number of uppercase letters, then we're basically printing out the entire string converted to lowercase. So we do print the variable we have here initially. So print prompt user input. And how do we convert string to lowercase? We do dot lower. So here you can see the difference. isLower is checking if this character is a lowercase. Lower, on the other hand, is basically converting this, whatever comes before this dot, to lowercase. Same thing also applies to the upper. So we're now going to be using else if, which means if this condition isn't true. So else if count upper is greater than count lower, which means if the number of uppercase letters is greater than the number of lowercase letters in the string, then convert the entire string to uppercase. So the format is similar to this if statement. So let me print out prompt user input, except this time it's going to be dot upper. So recall that isUpper checks if it is an uppercase, upper just converts this, whatever comes before this dot, to uppercase. So the only remaining condition left is if the number of lowercase and uppercase letters are equal. So here I could say L if, so if these two conditions aren't true, the remaining condition I have left is if the number of lowercase letters is equal to the number of uppercase letters. So in this case, we have to use the double equation sign for conditionals if you want to compare two values. So if the number of count letter lower is equal to the number of count upper, then we're basically printing out the string as is. But you actually don't need to have this count lower, count upper, because the only remaining condition you have left is if both of these are equal. But for now, let me just run this and let's do a few test cases. So let me just say use this, for example. Let me just say more lowercase letters than uppercase letters. So I'm just going to say and uppercase s. So this should hopefully convert it to lowercase, because here we see more lowercase letters than uppercase letters. If I have more uppercase letters than lowercase letters, so I'm going to have 3 capital letters and a lowercase letter, this. So since there are more uppercase letters than lowercase letters, it's converting the entire string to uppercase. Now, if I have the same number of lowercase letters as uppercase letters, so 2 uppercase letters, 2 lowercase letters, should hopefully print out the same thing we have here, unchanged. And that's basically our program. But let me actually get rid of this if count lower is equal to count upper and just say else, which means the only remaining condition we have left is if the count lower is equal to count upper, then this is going to be the only thing remaining that's going to be printed out. So let's actually test this. So I'm going to use the same example as last time. So let's test out. So more lowercase letters, which means convert to lowercase. More uppercase letters. More uppercase letters than lowercase letters means convert the entire string to uppercase. And then, so the same amount of lowercase letters as uppercase letters means leave the string as is. So that's basically our program. You can test for more test cases, but this is basically our implementation of this problem. So to walk through and to summarize what we did, we first prompt user to input. So whatever user types stored in this variable. Initialize these 2 variables, keeping track of the count of number of letters. And we're checking we're iterating through characters in the string and checking if that certain character is a lowercase and an uppercase. Then we're basically adding 1 to that variable every single time. And this, by up till here, we should be able to keep track of the count of lowercase and uppercase letters. And here we have the conditions which concludes this program. So if the number of lowercase letters are greater than the number of uppercase letters, you print out the string we had here, 2 lowercase. Otherwise, if the number of uppercase letters is greater than the number of lowercase letters, you print out this string 2 uppercase. Otherwise, the only remaining condition left, which means if both of these are equal, then you're basically leaving the string as is, which means you simply need to print out prompt user input. So that's basically the program. You can see it's a little bit more complicated than our last problem, more lines of code, but it's kind of more of developing these concepts as we start to use more of these concepts as we build more advanced programs. So that's basically this problem.